Good afternoon, good evening, or good morning, depending on when it is, where you are, and when you're watching this. My name is Logan Albright, and I'm back again with another book review for your viewing pleasure. Today I'm talking about a very strange book called Terminal Park by Gary J. Shipley. The reason I bought this book, I didn't know anything about it. I was completely blind, which I still like to do sometimes. It's fun to not know anything about a book and just read it without even knowing the basic outline of the plot. Just start it and see what happens. And the reason I did that is because it's published by this publisher called Apocalypse Party Press. They're based out of Philadelphia, and if you saw my review for Negative Space, that was also published by them. And I think they're a really interesting publisher that put out stuff that not a lot of other people are doing. And so sometimes I like to just find a publisher that I'm interested in and just buy their books blind and see what they're like. I'm probably going to continue doing that with this press because I like to be surprised, and I like interesting books, and this is certainly interesting. It's quite a short book, and very little happens in it. It's not a plot-heavy book. I think I've noticed a trend in modern fiction kind of against plot and more about themes, just interconnected ideas woven together over the course of the narrative, which is, doesn't really move forward, but just kind of places you in a certain place or time and lets you learn about the world. This is a weird one. It takes place in some kind of apocalyptic future where, for some reason, all of humankind has started multiplying. Like, each person has created doubles of themselves, and the world has become so overpopulated that it's a horrible mass of humanity, and people are just like killing each other as fast as they possibly can in order to keep the population down. It's quite disgusting. It's described in graphic detail. If you're squeamish, I do not recommend this book. But that's not really the point of the book. That's sort of the background in which the book takes place. And the book follows this character who has isolated himself on the top floor of like an apartment building or a skyscraper. And he has managed to wall off all the surging humanity, and he's living by himself up there. And he becomes increasingly obsessed with this video series he sees online, which is an art project by this guy who has decided to live inside an art installation for 195 days. Completely isolated from anybody else. And the art installation is a recreation of the barn from Psycho, the movie Psycho, Alfred Hitchcock Psycho. So you have a couple of different themes here. You have the isolation theme, because there's definite parallels between what the main character is going through in the real world and what he's watching on the screen. You have this isolation theme, you have this art imitating life theme and life imitating art theme, and you have this kind of film critic theme about the film Psycho. There's a lot of film criticism about the film and kind of analyzing it and talking about the themes within the film. There's a theme of doubling as well, of like doppelgangers and doubles. It's obviously reflected in the fact that humans are multiplying and creating doubles of themselves, but it's also kind of tied into the duality of Psycho, where the character has two personalities, or the character is kind of creating his false persona of himself, or trying to bring his mother back from the dead by inhabiting her, things like that. There's also the doubling of the structure that the artist is imprisoned in. He imprisons himself in. It's a scale model, slightly scaled down from what they used in the film, and the film's model was based on a real house apparently, and so they talk about kind of the idea of replicating something in an inexact way, where it's a smaller, more compact version of the same thing, and how those doubles, what the relationship of those doubles to the original is, and that ties in with the rest of the book of what the relationship of the doubling of the people is to their original selves. So it's sort of just this meditation on these various themes and kind of how they tie together. And like I said, it's described in quite a grotesque way and quite a graphic way. There's a lot of meditation on kind of the value of human life and murders that you see committed and how they affect you, and how experiencing a world in which life has ceased to have any value has changed people psychologically. The artist inside the art installation kind of gradually goes insane from being isolated and kind of shunning the different people who inhabit the exhibit and trying to stay hidden from them, who come to visit the exhibit and view it and try to stay hidden from them. He becomes pretty crazy after a long period of time, and he becomes murderous as well. So it was really strange and kind of bleak and kind of nihilistic. I think there's an overpopulation theme, kind of environmentalist theme in there as well, which I'm not too big of a fan of, because I think the overpopulation thing is really overblown, and people have been saying this for hundreds of years, that we're going to exhaust the resources of the planet, and it hasn't happened yet, and it doesn't look like it's going to happen anytime soon, because we keep coming up with new technologies to extend our, create more resources. So that's pretty cool. So I don't really buy into that Malthusian idea of the population bomb, and I think that's part of what he's going for here. But overall, really interesting book, very different from anything else I'd read, kind of sickening at times, but also captivating. I don't know that it's a book I'm going to return to very often. I don't think it's the kind of thing I'd want to read again, but then again, now that I think about it, there are certainly more to digest. If I went back into it, I think I would probably get more out of it on a second read. It's just that there's the world that it inhabits is so unpleasant that I don't know that I would want to spend a lot of time there. I guess the genre is sort of a mix between science fiction, horror, and like film criticism. So that's kind of interesting. You don't see those kind of ideas mixed very often. There's sort of an alien theme, which I don't say too much about because you don't really learn about that until the end. So there's a little bit of science fiction in there, and there's definitely plenty of horror, and there's a lot of analysis of Alfred Hitchcock's film Psycho. It's quite a lonely book. The main protagonist is fairly callous and doesn't really have any relationships with any other characters. He's pretty much on his own. There's a couple of other people who live in the apartment building with him, but he really tries to avoid talking to them or seeing them, and pretty much just looks out the window and sees all the horrifying things that are going down in the streets. So yeah, quite a dark, quite a bleak, quite a depressing book in certain ways, but definitely different. And if you're looking for something different, I would say check out this book, but in particular, check out Apocalypse Party and see if there's any other books that they offer that kind of pique your interest, because I think that they're doing something really different than most other fiction writers are doing. I saw like the critics really loved this one. I loved it a little less than they did. I think that it walks right up to the edge of pretension at times. And so I didn't love it as much as they did, but I found it really interesting and really different. So if you're interested in that kind of experimental literature, I definitely say check out Apocalypse Party. And the Gary J. Shipley does some interesting stuff here that you won't see very often. So that's my review of Terminal Park. Quite a short one today, but that's really all I have to say about it. It is quite a short book, and not very much happens in it. So I'll be back again as soon as I finish reading something else and tell you all about it. But in the meantime, please like the video, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content like this. I keep trying to make more videos as often as I can. It's hard to keep up sometimes, but I do my best. And also, don't forget, I've got a book coming out that I wrote, and if you're interested in that, it's coming out on December 1st. It's called Conform or Be Cast Out, The Literal Demonization of Nonconformists, and it is available for pre-order now on Amazon. Link in the description. Thanks so much, and I'll catch you later.